What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. We are here on Tuesday, couple days shy of Thursday Night Football. Very important, very big game that the Seahawks need a positive result from right now, or else the vibes will be on the floor. All the while, we're still trying to recover from the unfortunate happenings of Sunday. But I thought now would be a good time to check in on something regarding this offense because there's a lot that can be said about this offense that is positive. Right now, there might be more to say about this offense that is negative because of the game we just watched, where so much of the goodwill they built up in the first four games went out the window and we just we weren't able to produce. The game plan didn't make sense. Nothing went all that well. So I understand that right now the mood towards the offense is one of anger. I posted a video a couple of hours ago talking about how something's not right here. Something really, really stinks. But moving past that, because I think I've said all that need be said about that, I want to take a look at how Ryan Grubb is deploying his players. And this was something that was kind of interesting to me and many others going into the season, because obviously he's got great talent, right? Ryan Grubb came here with a lot of talent on this offense in terms of playmakers. So we're going to take a look at PFF here. And I know this is another PFF video, but trust me, guys, these numbers we're going to look at today are objective. They're not subjectively graded. They're not anything that can be interpreted one way or the other. These are just cold, hard numbers that are pretty much not debatable by anybody. Basically, I want to see where the players for the Seahawks are lining up. How are they being utilized from snap to snap? So PFF allows you to look at exactly where a player lined up on every single play, and it categorizes them. So we're starting here with DK Metcalf. And by the way, you can go more granular than this if you really want to. You can check the detailed positions thing, and it'll give you like more granular detail. But I'm not too worried about that personally for this video. I just want to get a feel for where players are lining up from play to play. Because this is the balancing act. This is another balancing act that the offensive coordinator has to operate. He's currently failing the run-pass balancing act. But now, what about the deployment of players in various positions balancing act? So, for instance, DK Metcalf, you can see that so far this year he has lined up as a wide receiver on the outside 260 times next to my head, and then 43 times he's lined up in the slot. So, you can see that Metcalf is lining up in wide receiver position a pretty large majority of the time. He's averaging less than 10 slot snaps per game. In fact, you can actually go to a breakdown of game by game over here. You can see that on 2 games, he did line up in the slot more than 10 times, but he is consistently lining up wide a vast majority of the time. So that makes sense, right? He's a bigger guy. He's a big receiver. He's capable of handling outside receiver responsibilities. You would expect him to be out there a lot. Contrast that with someone like Jackson Smith and Jigba. So through his first 5 games, you can see the deployment has been basically the opposite. 243 of his snaps have been in the slot and 50 have been out wide. And obviously in college, JSN was almost entirely a slot receiver, and when he came to the NFL, he was billed as a slot receiver. This should not surprise anybody. He also has 1 backfield snap, by the way, and most players are going to have 1 or 2 throwaway snaps in a weird spot. Like JSN had 1 backfield snap. Metcalf has 1 backfield snap and 1 inline snap. So we're not really going to spend a lot of time talking about that because it doesn't really tell us anything. But some people wondered if JSN might develop into somebody who can play on the outside like Lockett did. When Lockett came into the NFL, he was mostly viewed as a slot guy. And over time, he became a very good outside receiver. More on him in a second. But it's kind of interesting here, and we'll see if this ends up meaning anything. This might just be reflective of the fact that Metcalf played every snap against the Giants, whereas we didn't see that in the first 4 games. JSN played at least 10 snaps on the outside in each of the first 4 games, and then in this Giants game, he only played 4. Now, despite his skill set clearly leaning towards being a slot receiver, people have noticed that on JSN's game-winning touchdown on Philly last year, he actually lined up outside. So people were wondering maybe this is going to develop into something beyond what we even thought was possible. And maybe so, but currently you can see there is a clear focus on getting JSN in the slot as much as possible. He is spending nearly 50 snaps a game in the slot right now. Okay, so Tyler Lockett, you can see a much more even split, even though it's clearly slanted to one side. 171 of Lockett's snaps have been out wide, and 70 have been in the slot. So that comes out to, what, something like 14 snaps a game in the slot. And then he gets a majority of his snaps outside. And, I mean, that's where we need him, right? If JSN's taking up all these slot snaps, then somebody like Lockett's not really going to have that many to go around, so he plays out wide where he has proven that he is more than capable of playing well. And he's also got the one throwaway backfield snap, which, again, we don't learn anything from that. But what we do learn from here is that Lockett continues to be, because he's been fairly productive so far this year, he's actually kind of exceeding my expectations so far. He's still doing his thing. So let's go to Bobo now, and this I find to be interesting because when Jake Bobo came into the NFL, the story on him, the belief on Bobo was that he was a big slot. He was basically one of these players who, even though he's big, is meant to play in the slot because he can't beat press, and his best skill set comes from the slot. So far this year, he has been given 57 wide snaps. Again, by the way, just look to the right of my head if you want to see it for yourself. 57, so that's more than 10 a game, and only 18 slot snaps. So we're talking not even 4 a game. So you can see how things have switched up a little bit here for Bobo, where he is now being pushed in more to the outside. And he really hasn't done anything yet this year, and it's too small of a sample size to necessarily derive meaning from that. But I do find it to be interesting that we're making this, I don't even want to call it a switch up, because when he came into the league, he's theoretically malleable, but we're seeing him play more outside, and I wonder if maybe that's part of the reason why he's not as productive so far. Although, again, I want to stress, it's a small sample size, and right now the Seahawks offense has more important things to do than figure out how to get the ball to their number 4 receiver, but it is notable. We have enough data to at least say this is notable. Shenault has only played 25 snaps, so this is an even smaller sample size. 16 in the slot, 9 wide. I mean, I don't know what we can learn from that. We're still trying to figure out the Shenault stuff. I think it's going in a good place, but we're not there yet. So, not trying to say anything good or bad about Shenault yet, but majority of his snaps come in the slot, decent number come out wide, and we're just trying to find the rhythm with him. And I think that we will, but it's not going to happen overnight. And the only other receiver to get any real snaps this year would be Derek Young. Not most, but he's gotten more snaps in the backfield than anywhere else. He's got 5 of his 11 snaps in the backfield, which that goes back to that stuff I was always saying about how much I like Derek Young. He can kind of do that surrogate fullback thing where he lines up kind of the same way the Rams used to use Ben Skowronek, I think 2 years ago, when they were trying to find wrinkles to throw at defenses. He can kind of do that stuff. And he's also got 3 reps in the slot and 3 reps as a wideout. Again, very little data. All right, so now let's take a look at the tight ends here. And Noah Fant obviously hasn't been super productive, so you could argue that his deployment is maybe part of the problem. But I find this to be interesting. It's almost even. He has played 98 snaps as an inline tight end, so that's about 20 a game. And then he's played 20 snaps, or 101 snaps in the slot, which is about 20 a game. So it's more or less equal. And Noah Fant is an athletic pass-catching tight end. Irrespective of the fact that he hasn't caught that many passes yet this year. I don't really know what's going on there. I got nothing to say about that beyond what I've already said. This is kind of interesting. I would have expected him to be in the slot more, than this. And I would have expected us to not want him in line very much because he's not a very good blocker. He also has a non-trivial 23 snaps as a wideout and 4 snaps in the backfield for whatever meaning we want to take from that. So he's also doing some of that stuff. So on the whole, he is lining up as a receiver more than he is as a tight end. But I'm a little bit surprised because we clearly don't trust his run blocking or blocking in general. Excuse me. That we're allowing him to play in line so much. Because you look at Pharaoh Brown, and not a very big sample because he was hurt and has only played a little bit. He has played a vast majority of his snaps in line so far, 51 in line, 12 in the slot, and 1 wide. Also throw in 1 backfield snap and 1 offensive line snap. Let's actually see about that O-line snap real quick just for fun. Oh, right tackle. This is clearly the guy they trust to line up in line. This is the guy they think is actually a traditional, normal, regular tight end. And let's not forget about A.J. Barner, by the way, who is also getting a clear edge in his number of snaps in line versus as a wideout. So far, A.J. Barner has 73 snaps as an inline true tight end, 40 as a slot receiver, and 12 as a wide receiver. So, little bit surprised that if they're going to do that, they don't just give Noah Fant pretty much all the slot and wide tight end duties. So, I don't know if that's something we're going to see as the year goes on, but I think something needs to move either one way or the other here. Either you need to just decide, look, we're only going to have Noah Fant on the field for passing plays and he's not even going to line up as a tight end, or you need to go the other way and say, we're just going to live with Noah Fant's blocking, hope it gets a little bit better, and allow him to run block more. And don't forget Brady Russell, by the way. Now, he's basically being used as a fullback. 9 snaps in the backfield, 8 snaps in line, 1 snap slot. So he just plays a couple plays every game, and he's mostly being used as like a sort of fullback. And when he does line up as a receiver, it's in line pretty much exclusively. So not really much to read into there. Finally, we can look at the running backs. Ken Walker, remember he did miss some time. He's lined up in the backfield the vast majority of the time. Of course, he is a running back. But the interesting stuff here is how much is he lining up wide? Ken Walker is lined up as a wide receiver 21 times and in the slot 5 times. So once a game in the slot on average, and wide he's lined up. Well, actually, it's more than one because he did miss the 2 games. But 7 times a game on average he's lining up as a wide receiver. Mostly concentrated in these last 2 games. And I think that's just a product of the fact that we were throwing the ball so much. Walker has a lot of those plays where he starts in the backfield, goes in motion, lines up wide when the snap occurs. So, not too unexpected. Charbonnet, again, almost all of his snaps in the backfield, as you would expect. But some interesting stuff here. He lines up as a wide receiver 25 times so far through the first 5 games. Mostly against New England. About half of those came against New England. Lined up in the slot 11 times. Basically twice a game on average. In line 4 times, which is... I'm wondering if those happened on kneel downs. I'm wondering if maybe he lines up, quote-unquote, in line on kneel downs, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe on, like, a spike he did that. But I can't remember any plays where he lined up as a traditional tight end off the top of my head anyway. But they did happen. And kind of interesting. Like, Charbonnet has great receiving talent, but he's not really a guy you want lining up as a receiver this much. So I feel like maybe this is something that needs to get phased out even more than it already is. Like, this should not be happening that often. This is, to me, kind of an indication that we've gone a little bit too far with the pass-happy offense and going empty. If Charbonnet is going to be on the field for passing plays, then of course I'm for that. But he should probably be playing them from the backfield. I don't think that he's a receiver in that sense. If there's anybody you want to do that with, it's this guy, Kenny McIntosh, and he's basically not seen the field. And he's only played 3 snaps as a receiver, 1 in the slot, 2 wide. Everything else, 9 snaps in the backfield. So, nothing meaningful there. And that's it. I just thought it would be fun to go over that after 5 games, trying to get a feel for what Grubb is trying to do, trying to get an understanding of how he views these players. And I'm not against most of this stuff. It's just the play calling. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.